happy to be here. It's actually my first blockchain conference that I'm attending, and happy to be here. So I want to start off my session with a quote from the Managing Director of the IMF, Christine Lagarde. And she mentioned that we're in a brave new world. And further on, she asked, what could this brave new world look like? And besides her, we've also been questioning ourselves what this world may look like. Can it be that an economist that usually or traditionally crunch numbers, develop different economic programs and models, can they be replaced by machines doing the analysis and actually coming up with the different models and then people just analyzing it? Part of us looking at it as the Reserve Bank, and the first initiative that we've done is the establishment of the Fintech program. So it's part of a various string of programs that the bank are looking at to see how will the bank of the future look like. So Sonia asked me to speak to you guys on crypto assets, some of the regulatory progressions that have been done, and especially in South Africa as well. So I'll start off with a perspective on crypto assets. So what I've done is I've put together three different perspectives. The first one is a cynics perspective, and I think many of you have heard all about that as well. The second one is a fan, and I think most of you that's attending this conference are probably huge fans or proponents of crypto assets. And the last one is then the SARB's view on crypto assets. So the second part, I'll go into some of the guidance that the international regulatory bodies have given us, and then I'll go into some detail of what the different country stances have been, and then in particularly our stance, South African stance, what we have done. Fazam has alluded to the consultation paper, so I'll just explain a bit on that as well. So starting off with the three perspectives on crypto assets. So I think, and even last week this came out a lot. So there's prominent people in the industry, even in the regulatory world, that had very strong views on crypto assets. It's not only those prominent people, but it's also local or consumers like you and me that had different views or cynical views on crypto assets. And I think we're all opinion to our own interpretations and perspectives. But this has to be seen in the light of the bigger picture as well. So the second part of it is that it's not only prominent people like regulators and all consumers looking at it and expressing these views. There's different academics as well as practitioners pointing out to the warnings of crypto assets as well. And I think maybe a lot of you have seen this graph before, that some of the people are saying that it's a bubble waiting to happen. Or maybe it happened already. Not only do we have these different type of entities that's explaining their different ideas and revolutions on crypto assets, but we've seen it in practice as well. We've seen specific use cases where people use crypto assets for unscrupulous activities. And regulators have been hard on them to start identifying these type of activities and to eliminate these things. So moving on then to the fan's perspective. So from the one side of the pendulum to the other side, I think crypto assets has proven that it's here to stay. There are some definitive specific circumstances that it has proven that it has a lot of benefits for the industry. If we think of cross-border payments and transfers, for example, it has shown and it's proven that it can be more effective cheaper, faster than traditional methods of payment. So I think definitely we can say there is a space for crypto assets. Crypto assets in general, and more specifically, I think Bitcoin has become household names in many places. It's not only the normal IT geeks that's known about it, it's your everyday Joe on the street that started asking questions about Bitcoin, about crypto assets, what it is, trying to learn more about the technology, more about the innovation, and finally also investing in crypto assets. So we've seen this growing since 2008, 2009, even up to last year. So I do think there's a huge space still for it to grow. And I think this slide will probably sit good with a lot of you guys and proponents of crypto assets. It has proven that it can contribute to economic activity within the country, and it can contribute to society. It has shown that it can assist specifically small SMEs, for example, Fintech companies, to raise capital in a matter of days, for example, that where previously it took them months actually to start running. And it took away their energy and time from the business, but then to spend time on all the regulatory applications that needed to be done. We've known of Bitcoin, but we've also seen the growth in different types of coins, and it's now more than 2,000 different tokens that is available. So what's the SARB's perspective? And I think this is probably where a lot of you wanted to hear our comments on. So I think we can acknowledge that crypto assets and the technology itself, it's changing financial services as we know it. Just as the industry is adapting, current incumbents is adapting, regulators need to adapt as well. And hence again, why we've started the Fintech program and various other initiatives in the bank as well. I think we can't just rest on our laurels and expect things to be clear and transparent as we used to be, as we've known financial services for how many decades. This is changing now. So I think regulators need to change their stance and approach. And SARB as a regulator is trying to do it alongside the other financial regulators. I think Pete probably spoke yesterday or today about Project Koka as well. And it's an example of how we as regulators together with the industry can work on different initiatives and learn about the technology together. And what we've seen from Project Koka is initially we thought it's a once-off thing, we're going to learn about the technology, but we had so much traction from it that our current thinking is that it should be a program, and then there'll be different projects within the program. But it's all things that it has taken longer than we expected, but it's things that we're working on internally in the bank. So besides all the risk and the benefits that it brings, we have to be clear the benefits that it brings, we have to be clear that there are definitive risks around crypto assets. And it's only prudent for us as regulators to look at it from a comprehensive view, from an coherent overall view. So we have to be core to our regulatory mandate and regulatory responsibility that is protecting that's FSCA protecting the customers alongside us looking at the financial stability of the stability of the financial system. So although there are these benefits, I think we need to be level-headed about it and look at it comprehensively. So I've listed 10 issues that I think that's prominent within the world of crypto assets. And these issues are not only issues for us as regulators, but it's also issues that we as industry, or you as industry, can look at and should look at as well. So if I look at regulators, for example, there's not legal certainty of what crypto assets is. And that feeds into the regulatory framework and so forth. So that is something that we're busy looking at but there are other inherent risks in crypto assets as well. I'm not going to delve too much into it, but it's the normal consumer protection, AML, cybersecurity, I think all the risks that you are aware of. And I think we, as regulators and as industry, we can't not look at these issues. So I think we should come up with a way that we cohesively look at these different issues and come up with a position and a way to move forward. So the way that the regulators, standard setting bodies can react, I've listed about 3 sort of different approaches that we can start off. So the first one is to look at it philosophically. Like, for example, the BIS general manager said it's just a Ponzi scheme. I mean, people can have different comments on it, but so we have to think of it. What changes does it bring into the regulatory world? What benefits does it bring into the industry as well? So if we move from the philosophical view, we need to look at what policy measures we can implement. So what are those specific objectives? If we think of regulation, what are those objectives we want to achieve if we want to regulate this industry? And then if we have the different objectives and means of doing it, we need to think practically. So what are the tools available to us? Should it be a new regulatory framework? Should we look at existing regulations and adapt those regulations? Could it be a self-regulatory authority? I think those are practical issues then we need to answer ourselves. So from those high-level overviews, what are the initiatives that the standard setting bodies has alerted us to already? So I've listed 5 different, and it's standard setting bodies and regulatory authorities. So the first one is the G20. They have recognized that it's not currently a financial stability concern, but they have said it's prudent to monitor the risk in this area and continue monitoring of the different activities. They've always also been big proponents of starting multinational agreements on how to actually regulate crypto assets. The FSB, similarly, they've also said at the existing moment, it does not have financial stability risk perspectives, but we still need to monitor the different risks that does arise from it. And they've developed a metrics of how to collect data around crypto assets, and hopefully different regulatory authorities around the globe adopt this type of framework that we can have comparable data and see what risk does arise from crypto assets. The third one that I've listed is IOSCO, and it's the International Organization for Securities Commission. And they've started an ICO consultation network. So what they're looking at is what are some of the investor protection issues locally or domestically and cross-border that might arise from the use of crypto assets. And then, of course, BIS, Bank for International Settlements. We are part of 3 of the different working groups that's looking at crypto assets. The first one is TFFT, it's the Task Force for Financial Technology. Second one is CPMI, and there's different work groups on that as well. The last one that I didn't list is the Basel Committee of Banking Supervision. So each of these committees have different initiatives to look at crypto assets. The BCBS Basel Committee of Banking Supervision are about to release high-level expectations on financial institutions with exposure to crypto assets as well. The CPMI, Committee for Payments and Market Infrastructure, have released various various documents on crypto assets as well. The fifth one is FETF, so Financial Action Task Force, that looks at AML and CFT. They've come out in October or November on new recommendations that includes crypto asset service providers as well. And hence you'll see in our consultation paper as well that we thought it's prudent that we adopt some of those guidance that came up from FETF as well. So moving on to some of the country-specific initiatives that some of the countries have implemented or thinking of implementing. So I've categorized it in three different approaches. So the first one is a more restrictive approach, where some countries have banned be it crypto assets or ICOs. The second approach then focuses more on a more facilitative stance. And the last approach is where countries have been more accommodative, that they've actively promoted crypto assets and ICOs. And we have a colleague from Malta as well. That's one of those examples. So if I start with countries that have taken a more restrictive approach, I can actually read. Morocco, for example. In Morocco, it's deemed as a violation of exchange controls when you conduct transactions in crypto assets. Similarly, in the UAE, they've also taken a stance to ban the transacting in crypto assets. In India and Thailand, they've taken the stance that for payment transactions specifically, it's banned. And all financial institutions that's regulated by them are not allowed to interact with crypto asset service providers. China is a bit of anomaly. On the one side, I hear that it's allowed and you can actually trade in crypto assets. But they've also come out and said that financial institutions can't, or crypto asset service providers can't provide services related to crypto assets to the Chinese community. They've also banned ICOs, and there are some specific foreign crypto exchanges that's not allowed within China as well. So if I move over from the more restrictive approach to what I call, and this is just my own analysis, it's not the Reserve Bank's opinion, countries that for me has taken more of a facilitative stance, and I list Australia, Japan, UK and Singapore. Australia have come out with similar to what we have done, I think. There's specific recommendations on AML, and there are some regulations regarding tax provision as well. Similarly, Japan has requirements for AML, and they deem crypto assets as electronic money, and it's regulated under Payment Services Act. In the United Kingdom, I think the report came out October of last year as well. So they've established a specific task force to look at crypto assets. And some of the recommendations that they came out with is there should be a robust AML CFT type of regulatory framework. And their recommendations are now sent to their Minister of Finance to look at it and to implement these different regulatory frameworks. Also for specific crypto tokens, like in the slide I mentioned, exchange tokens, they've prohibited from being issued as ICOs. So it's not ICOs that's banned. It's specific tokens that they deem as exchange tokens. So they see tokens as crypto assets as the umbrella term, and underneath it's exchange tokens, security tokens, and utility tokens. So in terms of ICOs, it's not allowed for exchange tokens. Singapore as well, what they've done, they've deemed crypto trading under the payment services bill that's about to be enacted as well. So there's specific AML requirements that's required or that's put on crypto asset service providers to adhere to. The last one that I call it's more of an accommodative stance is Netherlands, Switzerland, and Malta, as I mentioned. So Netherlands specifically, they've highlighted there are some AML CFT requirements, but they've also put out a stance that they want to actively promote companies or financial technology specific companies that focus on blockchain technology, trying to get them up and running and promote the active development of such type of activities. In Switzerland as well, some of the big things they have done, they've tried to make regulatory provisions more lax, if I can put it, for financial technology companies. I think lax is also well to make it more clearer for them that they know specifically these are the type of regulations that you need to adhere to. They've also come out with AML requirements that crypto asset service providers need to adhere to. ICOs, as mentioned in the slide, it's assessed on a case-by-case basis, so depending on the specific use case, the different regulatory framework will apply. I'm not going to elaborate much on Malta. I think you'll do a good job with that. I think, do I have 1 second left? So just quickly, the South African, or the approach that we've taken, as you know, it's a joint regulatory approach. We've done it with the FSCA, FIC, National Treasury as well. Who am I missing? FIC. So we've come up with the crypto asset regulatory working paper or consultation paper. What we've tried to do is take it from a functional approach. We've identified about 5 use cases. The consultation paper specifically focuses on 2 use cases. And then in the next phase, we'll address the other 3 use cases that's left. As I mentioned, it's a consultation process. We've had a workshop last year, November, on crypto assets. And I think it's 15 February with a due date for any comments on the consultation paper that was released. So basically after the consultation paper, a policy paper will be issued. From the policy paper, this will lead into the eventual regulatory framework. And then briefly, the specific requirements or recommendations that the consultation paper set is as well, if I mentioned, similar to some of the other countries. There's AML CFT requirements, and for now, as it's a phased approach, we're proposing a registration process at a central point. That central point we'll probably have to allude to in the position paper that will come out. Thank you.
All right, I think we have time for a question or 2.
So I guess no questions.
No, there is one.
Hi, thanks for that, very well. I just wanted to find out a question. What is SARB's view on launching a ZAR stablecoin in South Africa?
As I think as you guys know, we're busy with the crypto assets paper, and we see it totally different from a stable coin or a central bank issued digital currency. There are definitely work being done in the Reserve Bank to look at the issuing of cryptocurrency, but it's to look at the policy implications. It's not to look at are we going to issue a cryptocurrency. It's if that might happen, or if any other country does issue it, what's the implications on us as the Reserve Bank? Okay.
All right, since nobody else has their hand up, let me ask a question, if I may. Were the recent remarks by the governor officially from the SARB, or is there another story behind that?
I knew this was coming.
And just so that everybody in the audience knows, there was an article quoting the governor saying that cryptocurrencies were a pyramid scheme.
I definitely think it was a case of being misquoted. If we look at our position papers and consultation paper, if that was the stance that the Reserve Bank or any of the other regulatory authorities subscribed to, it would have come out from that consultation paper. So I do not think that's the specific case, and I think he was quoted in a specific scenario.
Governor, does ANRICH still have a job? No, thank you so much for that. That's very insightful.